Welcome to the weekly game drive. This is episode 5. I'm Basil, and I have my co-host with me, Sky.
I'm Sky.
And today we're going to be talking about the last week of game news, which is what this show is all about. Just talking about the week's events, if you will. And there's a little bit we had this week. We had EA Play's extremely impressive reveals, like they just blew everyone out of the water.
Man, Basil, you're really setting up the end of this show to be really bad.
But we can just jump right into it. Starting with Horizon this is kind of an update to last week's show. I was talking about how it was weird during Sony's conference that they didn't reveal Horizon's release date. Horizon Forbidden West, that is. And I speculated that maybe that means it's pretty far out, like 2022, 2023 even. But it turns out they released a video afterwards saying that they're aiming for a 2021 release date, which I thought was very weird. Because if you have a 2021 release date, why didn't you just say that during the conference, you know?
Because they forgot, Basil. It just flew past them.
I guess speculating on that implies that they're not confident in that release date, which is probably why they didn't show it. But it's just a little weird, you know. I know you don't really have much interest or anything to say about that, so we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on it. I just wanted to.
I will say I'm incredibly surprised and confused that they're just now announcing its release date. I don't get why they didn't, like you said, why didn't they do it initially? What was wrong? I mean, you clearly have a lot of respect for your team that's working on this. You also have a lot of, you're patting them on the back. I mean, you made them the end of the show. You clearly respect their work.
Do you think, because there was a lot of games that didn't have release dates during that show, do you think that this is partly, if you say it's in 2021, you're saying it's not a launch game? And do you think that there's a subsection of consumers who are dumb enough to assume that every game at every show is pretty much a launch game? And that if they give you a date, they're pretty much guaranteeing you it's not a launch game, and so they want people to buy it with the assumption that they'll be able to get that game. That's a little conspiratorial, I know, but people can be dumb sometimes.
Sometimes?
I mean, after the show, I saw a lot of people saying that Hitman and Resident Evil were PS exclusives now. So that's how dumb people can be.
Yeah, people are really, really dumb. I mean, here's the thing. If you don't give us a release date, I'm actually more likely to assume that this means that it's just a working title and we won't have a release date at least for another year and a half to 2 years.
Right.
At the least. I personally don't have a problem with that if you're going to give a working title and it's a long way out. But the fact that this is going to be out potentially next year, yeah, it's like, okay, why? Then again, it could also be that they're afraid that if they announce a bunch of games and they're all coming out next year, that's going to hurt the PS5's sale price. Because why would you buy it at initial release if the only thing you're going to get to play is Miles Morales?
Exactly. That's a good point. But I think we can move on from that. There's not a whole much more of an update, not a lot to extrapolate.
I have a little side thing that I've totally just felt like throwing out there
Okay.
on the topic of release dates and no announced ones. We have other games we're going to talk about with this, kind of, because there's one later, Pokemon, that doesn't have one, but Dark Souls also didn't have a release date, and some people have actually been theorizing. There was actually a subset of people who theorized it's going to be a launch title because they didn't announce its actual release date.
Oh, you mean Demon
Souls,
by the way, right?
Did I say Dark Souls?
Yes.
Alright, I meant Demon Souls, my bad. Thank you for correcting me. I don't know why I said Dark Souls. I like Demon Souls a lot. I'm 100% sure that it's not a launch title. I feel like you would have told everyone that, considering Demon Souls has clout.
Well, that's what I think about a lot of the games that didn't get release dates. Is I'm like, okay, these have to be a bit of a ways out. But I guess
Yeah.
the Horizon thing kind of is like, well, maybe they're not that far out. They're just not launch titles, so they didn't throw a release date on there to be like, oh, wait till next year to buy your PS5. Get it now.
I am curious, how would you feel if it was a launch title?
Demon Souls? I think that would be a.
Either of them.
Well, Horizon's not. I mean, that's already been confirmed. But if it was,
I meant if it had been, and they were just not telling us.
I was perfectly willing to buy a PS5 if Horizon was a launch title. Mostly because I felt like that was, even though I sound like I'm a way bigger fan of Horizon than I am, I really enjoyed the first game. Do I think it's the best game ever? No. Do I think it's as good as a lot of other games in that vein? No. I actually think the story is a big weak point. But I do think Horizon Forbidden West will be a true next-gen showcase in terms of visuals, in terms of gameplay, and so I would like to experience that. I don't think Spider-Man Miles Morales will be a next-gen showcase. I think it's going to be what we've seen with Spider-Man, a little bit prettier, a shorter story, because it's already confirmed to be a smaller standalone title. I just don't think there's really a game there. And I don't know if Ratchet and Clank was launched, but also Ratchet and Clank isn't really the next-gen showcase type game that I would want. So there's just nothing there for me at launch. Demon Souls doesn't really interest me because it's not my type of game. That being said, I do think if that was a launch title, that would be a huge boost to the value proposition at launch.
Yeah. Even with like in the current state, because of how everything is, the only question that I have is, are we truly backwards compatible? That's the only question I
Yeah,
need answered before I decide to upgrade.
they didn't talk about that.
Yeah, that's the problem. I'm actually, this is the first time I'm gonna say this. I kind of want to get a Series X instead because I'd rather play Halo.
I'm just
Like,
I mean, and
I'm
that
not.
that could change in 2 weeks once we see what Halo looks like. But
Well, that's the thing I'm saying though, is like, I already have, like, I have a lot more
the Series X is launching with a big next gen showcase game, and I don't really
on
think
top
the
of,
PS5 is.
like, on top of, like, complete backwards compatibility,
Yeah,
like, or near complete. Of course, that's an incredible value proposition. I could ditch my Xbox One for Series X and, like, have no problem with that because I barely have anything on my Xbox One.
yeah,
Frankly, from a value proposition, I like what they've done with the Series X. Microsoft gets it. They're giving you value now, which is something that, like, they shot themselves in the foot, but they're doing it. Whereas, like, Sony's like, oh, we're not going to talk about it.
yeah. I mean, I think they've had very mixed messaging, but I think we've already talked a fair amount about Sony's backwards.
Yeah.
But anyway, speaking of release dates and in the fluidity of them, Cyberpunk 2077 just got delayed again. They put out a little bit of a press release, which I'm going to read real quickly. This is from I have no idea how to pronounce their names. The co-founder and the head of studios of CD Projekt Red said, "We have decided to move the launch of Cyberpunk 2077 from September 17th to November 19th, so that's 2 months. Those of you who are familiar with the way we make games know that we won't ship something which is not ready. Ready when it's done is not just a phrase we say because it sounds right, it's something we live by even when we know we'll take the heat for it. At the same time, we are fully aware that making such a decision costs us your trust, and trading trust for additional time is one of the hardest decisions a game developer can make. And despite we think," that's kind of weird grammar, "and despite we think it's the right decision for the game," should say, "and despite that, we think it's the right decision for the game." Anyways, "we'd still like to apologize for making you wait longer. Our intention is to make Cyberpunk 2077 something that will stay with you for years to come. In the end, we hope you understand why we did what we did. At the time we are writing these words, Cyberpunk 2077 is finished, both content and gameplay wise. The quests, the cutscenes, the skills, and the items, all the adventures Night City has to offer, it's all there. But with such an abundance of content and complex systems interweaving with each other, we need to properly go through everything, balance game mechanics, and fix a lot of bugs. A huge world means a huge number of things to iron out, and we will spend the additional time doing exactly that. This week, journalists from all over the world are starting to independently play the game. We are eager and quite stressed to hear their opinions, as well as see your reactions when they publish their previews right after we air Night City Wire on the 25th of June. We hope this will satisfy some of your hunger for the game as we work to pull it." I read that as Polish because they're Polish developers. "Polish it for the November launch." Apparently, I can't read. So yeah, this is just another delay for them. I think this is their third delay. As a person who's like eagerly anticipating this game, I'm actually happy they did this. One, it means it'll launch with the next gen consoles pretty much, so that's pretty cool. Two, don't release a broken game. If a game's having bugs, if it's buggy or whatever, and you think that it's not the quality you want to hit, just don't release it. It's as simple as that. Push it back because it's better, as the old saying or a rush game is always bad, and a delayed game is eventually good. So I think Shigeru Miyamoto said that. But
Yeah, I also agree. I love Final Fantasy 15.
but yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see this game, but we're gonna get a bunch of stuff next week, which we'll be talking about this game because they're gonna have their big showcase of it, Night City Wire, which was delayed a couple of weeks. That would actually have been 2 weeks ago, but it's neither here nor there. I'm excited for it. I'm glad they pushed it back in the sense that, well, that does give me a bit of a. The only thing is, I know that November's the launch of the new consoles. Most likely. I mean, there's no guarantees, but come on. They want to hit that
Yeah.
holiday season. So I would expect Halo Infinite will be launching around that time, as well as some other big games. I expect Miles Morales to be around. Like, I expect that each platform, when it launches, it'll have its competing games. Then this will be the big GTA 5, if you will, launch of this
Yeah.
generation, where it's 360 or Xbox One and PS4, but also next gen. I imagine they will sell like gangbusters. A thing to be aware of is on both PS5 and Xbox One, you will get a free upgrade to the next gen version if you buy it on PS4 or Xbox. I said Xbox One instead of Series. You'll get the free upgrade no matter what, and it's backwards compatible, so you're fine. So, what do you think about this delay?
So for one, immediately the fact that it's being pushed back, I saw a lot of people who were upset. Like a lot of them were like, "Well, this broke it. I'm not waiting anymore." And I'm just like, it's 2 months in the span. Like, all right, as someone who waited for Final Fantasy 15, as someone who genuinely was interested back when it was still codename Versus, 2 months is nothing to 7 years. And they told you why they're delaying it. They didn't give you some like, we delayed it because blah. Like, this was very, very particular. They literally told you why they're delaying it. There are bugs and there's still a lot of balancing that they think they need to do. They aren't comfortable with what they have. They want to bug fix it even more than it already is. Especially in the current game climate where one of the number one things people despise in new releases is bugs.
Yeah. Well, the other joke, I've seen some people be like bouncing off of the reaction. I've seen some people be like, "Oh, they're just lying. They just want to get it out for the next gen console release because it'll be more money." And I'm like, that argument doesn't really make sense in the case of Cyberpunk because like they're not you can't buy it twice, Like it's a free upgrade to next gen. So if you buy it for PS4, it works on PS5. If you buy it for Xbox One, it works on Series X. So that argument doesn't really hold water, you know? And the idea that, oh, it'll make more money by launching with next gen doesn't make as much sense either because next gen consoles at launch, like they'll be like what? After the first 2 months, you'll have maybe like 4 or 5 million PS5s and maybe 2 or 3 million Series X's out in the world. You think that's going to make more money than the 120 million PS4s and the 50 million Xbox Ones? No.
I I think it's pretty funny. Like, I don't really get the mentality. I mean, actually, I was gonna say this does benefit them definitely. I definitely think that launching alongside the new consoles, people will probably be like, I need something to play on my next gen
Oh,
console.
absolutely. I think you'll get those sales, but I don't think the margin is as big as people think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that I don't think it's as big as people are like really
And because they're
considering.
not forcing you to buy it twice, like GTA 5, there's not really that much of a, you can feel confident in your purchase no matter what you get it on. I saw,
Technically, GTA has made you buy it 3 times when you think
yeah,
about it.
watch them charge it as a new game for PS5.
Fuck.
But yeah, I don't know. I think do what you need to do to make your game the best it can possibly be. Like I'm a huge Halo fan. If they like next week or when they do the reveal for Halo Infinite, we're like, we have to push this game back to March. I would be like, okay, do that. I mean, I've waited 5 years. I can wait a few more months. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
It's like I've never understood why people are like so upset when they see something get delayed over and like all right, if it was like a Duke Nukem Forever or a Versus, I can kind of get it because literally those games got delayed by like complete years.
Well, if it's like Star Citizen or something where it's like this game is just never coming out.
The irony there is that like Star Citizen has games that are like legitimately that but as good already, and like Star
Yeah,
Citizen is still like limping to the finish line, and it probably will never reach the finish line at the rate it's going.
that attitude though is like it's so you're mad if they release a broken game, but you're mad if they delay a game to make sure it doesn't release as a broken game. I'll never understand that.
Well, I mean, you got to remember the consumer doesn't care about the details; they just care about the product.
Yeah,
And if the product is good or bad, they'll just say what they say.
yeah, and you also have to remember that gamers are a bunch of children.
This is absolutely true. Confirmed. But yeah, this is fine. It's good news. I 100% trust
CD
Cyberpunk,
Projekt
the
Red.
team Cyberpunk. Yeah, I trust CD Projekt Red. I believe they know what they're doing, especially because I will say I think that they're actually being more ambitious than any of us know. Again, our details are still very scarce. We haven't actually seen a whole lot. So,
Yeah, I'm really excited for Thursday when we're going to see the reveal of this game. Like supposedly it's a pretty big reveal. They're going to go into the systems, the gameplay and stuff. Because like we've seen stuff before, but it was very not scripted, so to speak, but it was a very like small slice of the game.
considering how long it'll be, like if you look at Witcher, like they have a track record of very long titles with lots of content.
Exactly. And then they're going to have huge expansions for it. Like they make games that are worth your money from a value perspective, which is something that like I know if I buy this for my Xbox One or whatever, it'd be pretty funny is if it like let's say it comes out November 19th and then next gen consoles come out a week later, maybe they launch on Black Friday. It's like, okay, so people are going to buy it for like their Xbox Ones and then they'll be like or their PS4s, then they'll play it on those and kind of get used to those visuals and then boom, you buy the next gen console a week later and you get that automatic upgrade. That'd be kind of funny. Although apparently they're going to look better on the new consoles from day one, Cyberpunk is, but it's not going to be the full next gen renovation yet. They said that's coming next year.
That's fair.
They said it'll be like the boost mode that the consoles do or whatever, where it up-reses the game and makes sure it runs at the best, like, stablest frame rate, but it won't be like the full next-gen upgrade. That'll be coming later.
Luckily, I'm going to play on PC.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I'm excited for this game, and I'm happy to see more. I imagine the hardest part for them is just keeping the game in the zeitgeist because, like, having to delay it as much. I remember this game was originally supposed to come out in April. And then it got pushed back to September, and now it's got pushed back to November. That's a real... Maybe it'll release in 2077 by this point.
Don't make that joke. I saw so many of it in the comments.
I know, it's the dumbest joke in the world.
It really is. All right, let's move on. We got a series. We actually got technically two, but, the second one's a little weird. Two series that got new titles announced, or at least, like, sort of, kind of. One of these was more I want to say it's more of a leak. Because it got rated. The new Crash Bandicoot 4. It's about time.
I actually really like that title.
I kind of hate it, but it's because it's so memey.
It's dumb, but it's like it's a kid's game, so like it's not like this is Alan Wake. It's about time, it's Crash Bandicoot, and it's kind of funny it has a double meaning, it's like the game's going to be about time travel, but also it's been so long since they've had a sequel to Crash Bandicoot that it's like, oh, it's about time.
This isn't the first, all right, this is going to sound weird. This isn't the fourth entry in a series, though, to do this.
Yeah.
It's not supposedly.
Halo 4, it's about time.
Yeah. No, I was going to say actually another platformer with another anthropomorphic character. Sly 4 was called Thieves in Time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that game wasn't good. So...
Yeah. I just want to say from like a money perspective, it makes perfect sense that Activision is pursuing this. The Crash Bandicoot remake sold extremely well. I was honestly surprised we didn't see this sooner. But apparently this is going to get revealed on Monday by Jeff Keighley with his like Summer Game Fest thing.
Oh, wait, is that a thing?
Yeah.
Cool.
So that'll be something to talk about. We'll be able to see some gameplay. I'm curious if it's going to go like full 3D platformer, say like Mario Odyssey type thing, or if it's going to be more classic Crash Bandicoot, where it's kind of a 2D platforming, but also kind of like, it has that weird like on rails nature to it. I'm curious about that. I've actually never played Crash Bandicoot, but I'm considering about giving the remakes a try. I hear they're pretty solid.
Yes, they are very, 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 very good. Crash is one of those like platformers that I grew up with. Specifically, Crash 3 Warped is the one I played the most. Very good games with a lot of interesting dynamic change. Like there's a lot of different levels that are different from one to the next, and there's a lot of like cool theming. As well as, like, around the time they got to the third one, Warped, they added in a bunch of, like, really cool, like, other styles of missions where, like, there was one that was, like, a flight control that people don't like it much, but I thought it was cool thematically. And there was also, like, a racing segment where you had to race on a motorcycle against, like, other bikers.
Yeah.
It was a good time. But I'm glad that he's coming back. He's deserved it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and it's, like, Activision would be dumb not to make this game. Like, it's gonna sell, I imagine it'll sell pretty well, especially considering it's gonna be a next gen / like, it's coming out at that time. And for next gen, I mean, we'll see what Xbox has in terms of platformers, but I mean, we know Sony has. I mean, Ratchet and Clank isn't as much a platformer as it is more of a shooter.
I would describe it as a 3D action game.
Yeah, there you go. Whereas they have that Sackboy, that's their platformer. But we'll see.
Actually, action adventure is the way I would coin a Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah,
Because that's
definitely.
pretty much what it
Because
is.
they have like their set piece moments, and yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited. I want to see gameplay. If it looks good, I'll definitely probably be into buying it.
Yeah.
This is really exciting.
If it looks good enough, I'll definitely try the. I'm just wondering what platform I should get the remake on. Probably, I'm waffling between Switch and Xbox at this point because my PS4 controller's a little busted.
I was gonna say, I think it runs pretty well on Switch. A lot of people I've heard play it on Switch. So
Yeah.
as long as you don't have Joy-Con drift.
Oh, I actually might be getting that on one of my Joy-Cons.
Because if you do, this game requires very tight platforming as you move forward in the game.
Then I might want.
So
I don't know. Regardless, I thought that was a cool kind of leak. Not Toys for Bob is developing it. I don't know what other games they developed, but that name sounds familiar.
I have never heard of them.
But yeah. So we can. Speaking of a series that hasn't been around for a long time, now we have a new picture game with monsters.
Great, nailed it. Yes, Pokemon Snap. Now again. As our the thing I linked, Pokemon Snap is like 20 years old now. It was an N64 game, and they never made a sequel. And a lot of people really have these great fond memories. In particular, my significant other has a very, very, very high love for it. And she was actually literally a week ago, she was like, "Man, I want another Pokemon Snap." Well, she got it. It's happening. I can't believe it. A Pokemon Snap after 20 years. We're getting a new one.
Yep.
And
did you play the original?
Yeah, I have. I didn't get a ton of time with it because it was back my dad used to work at a Wizards of the Coast, and they had the game there, and I played it for one of the days I went there. He would take me with him to his work, and I was allowed to play on their game consoles they had in there. And one of them was they had an N64. And it's the reason I got exposed to games like Smash early. It's why I got exposed to Pokemon Stadium. I got to play Pokemon Snap. I got to play a bunch of stuff like that. And Pokemon Snap is really, really cool. It's essentially like an on-rails shooter, but instead you're trying to take photos. And you want to take photos of different events and stuff that happen. Because sometimes by actively waiting or doing certain things, you can throw berries and stuff too. Normally you can throw all this stuff that can get Pokemon's attention. Sometimes it can actually interact with it, and you can see cool events happen. I believe there was one where you saw a Pokemon that actually went into a volcano and evolved or something like that. And all this different stuff. And the whole point is you're essentially trying to get a high score. And eventually you'll unlock new locations, they showcase a bunch of different ones in this. And considering this is a new Pokemon Snap, it's not a remake. I'm infinitely excited for this. Will I buy it? Personally, probably not, since my SO is getting it instead. But I'll definitely watch and play it because it looks great. And honestly, anyone that has a fondness for Pokemon is going to be excited. This really captures the more I guess simple love of just seeing a bunch of animals in the environment kind of thing that they go for.
Yeah, in Breath of the Wild, you can take pictures of animals and then it adds them to your journal, Yeah. And I always enjoyed that as a mechanic. It's very relaxing. It adds a whole another type of way to play a game, Not every game has to be Doom, where you're ripping things into bits, whatever.
I think a nice relaxing change of pace is actually pretty nice, and that's what Snap's gonna be. It's just crazy to think that out of nowhere they're making a new one.
Yeah, that's pretty cool for the fans, Speaking of fans and disappointing people, EA had their conference this week, and why? I don't know why EA chose to do a conference. I think they could have just released some of the trailers as trailers, and just been oh, check out what EA's got next. There wasn't. So the big announcements We'll talk about Star Wars Squadrons first because that was like one of the things we were talking about last
Yeah.
week. This was like the big announcement of the show, and I thought it looked pretty decent.
Before we go too far, let me just say, IGN. If anyone here wants to like, actually, I don't usually recommend them because I hate them, but IGN put up a video that gave you they condensed all the announcements in the EA Play Live. It is 3 minutes long, and to give you an idea, there's like 6 games in there.
Yeah,
That's how pitiful this was, and most of these games are not that exciting. I'm gonna say it now.
yeah, but yeah. So Star Wars Squadrons, we saw some gameplay, and it looks cool. The only thing that has me interested in it, to be honest, though, because the game all takes place from the first person perspective, and I hate vehicles in first person. So the only thing that gives me interest in this would be the VR mode. Apparently, it's a VR like the whole game is. So that could be kind of cool playing a Star Wars game in VR like that. But other than that, I'm honestly not that interested in this game. Uh,
Really, I thought you were gonna be kind of. I was really excited because I just like. I've always been a big fan of like the Squadron games. Sadly, this is not in that same vein at all because it's first person, which
that's
I have
what
to agree
kind
I'm
of
not
like
big on.
knocked me out of it. Like you can't see anything from in that cockpit. Like in Battlefront 2, you have the option to go from first person to third person when you're doing the space battles, and nobody plays in first person because it's like such a handicap. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the game, it's cool that there's no microtransactions, which was announced. It's cool that it's $40. Like
Wow.
it's not gonna, you know, financially take advantage of us the way Battlefront 2 did. But yeah, I don't know. I expected to like it more, and then
Uh, I guess I'm gonna come in then as someone who's actually pretty optimistic. I think the game looks great for one.
yes, yeah,
I noticed immediately by watching like them flying around in the cockpit, the thing I was like very drawn to. While I'm not big on the fact that it's going to be completely first person, I would have preferred they just built it around a third person engine instead. I will say I really, really like how detailed that cockpit is. It's like
yes,
crazy to me how detailed it is, and I wonder. I'm really curious to actually get the game in my hands to play it because I want to know what it plays like.
yeah. And in VR, I imagine that'll be super cool to see the cockpit from inside like that.
Absolutely, and I also want to say shout out to the fact that they were super cool. Also, my phone just rang, but no one can hear it anyway. It's fine. I really, really, really like that they're going to let you completely customize your pilot. I was like,
Yeah,
that's cool.
and the
That's
ship too.
super unnecessary too.
Like we've never seen TIE fighters with like skins and stuff. Like there was a gold one and a red one, and I'm like, wow, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, it's like, God, it's super cool. Like everything about that is really cool to me, and I'm really excited just to get an opportunity to see all that different like I really, 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 really like the fighter aspect of Star Wars. I've always been someone who's like, Jedi are cool and the whole conflict between them is great and all, but dude, fighters are really cool to watch fly around and shoot things. Like I always really thought it was interesting that that I always liked that subgenre for Star Wars because we had your fighter games and then you had your more story driven Jedi focused games. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, I always liked that kind of dynamic we had in the early like 2000s, where oh, you got Jedi Starfighter, but you also got the games featuring like Anakin and all that, and then you had like the Rogue Squadron games, but then on the flip side, you also had Shadows of the Empire, and like I really like that. Can we
Yeah,
go back to? I hate that we get no games anymore for Star Wars.
yeah. I mean, at this point, I mean, it's like one a year now, which is better than what it was at first with EA. But like, what we had Battlefront 2 in 2017, nothing in 2018, and then we had Fallen Order in 2019, and then in 2020 we're getting Squadrons. EA, I don't know. I mean, they like Fallen Order's good. Battlefront 2 apparently like it's pretty solid now after years of updating and working on it. And like this game Squadrons could be good, but it's like there's just so little variety. The other thing that kind of like oofed me a little bit was like, okay, another Rebels Empire. Like I'm just so
I mean, all right, I'm about to throw this your way though. To be honest though, when you think of the fighter side of this,
I
I
know
definitely think that the
TIE
Empire
fighters and
and
X-wings. I
much more iconic than like some of the fighters from the
No, absolutely. I'm not. I just And maybe they'll have more customization options, but I hope like there's more ships than just the 8 that we saw. Like I hope there's different types, you know.
Well, if what types did we see? We saw the A wing, the X wing, the
Y-wing
Y
and
wing.
the
Did we see a
U-wing.
B wing?
No.
We saw the U wing, but not the B wing.
Yeah. Then we also, on the TIE fighter side, we saw the TIE Interceptor, the regular TIE fighter, the TIE Bomber, and then there was a different ship that I don't know what it was.
The TIE Advanced. Or no, wait, that's I think the TIE Advanced is actually Vader's ship.
Yeah, so,
I don't know. I have like a really weird like I don't know. I'm not gonna say I'm like, oh man, I'm really beaten up that we're not going to be getting we're not getting what's it called? That game or I'm not gonna be like, oh man, we didn't get any like Old Republic or not Old Republic, any like,
yeah, I know what you're saying, like prequel stuff,
yeah.
but and that's
Yeah,
not
we
exactly
gave
what I
prequel
mean.
stuff. I was just gonna say, let me devil's advocate and say at least we're not getting any sequel stuff.
This is true, except sequel stuff is just original trilogy stuff. So,
Don't remind me.
do you want to play as more X-wings and TIE fighters? But yeah, I think it looks like a solid game, and I'll probably try it in VR for the heck of it. On to the next kind of things. They had like a very generic looking hero shooter. No, did not interest me at all. I can't remember the name. What?
Rocket Arena, and
Oh
the
yeah,
reason I
Rocket.
remember that is because I was like, that's generic.
But they did have. I don't really want to talk that much about that. But if you have something else to say about Rocket Arena,
Oh, I'm just gonna say generic name, and what do you know? Another hero arena shooter.
with the same art
Wow.
style as Fortnite.
Wow, same art style as like 7 games that are trying to be big right now. Haha.
Yeah, but they did have a game, like so they had those original in EA originals, which they brought back that F the Oscars guy,
Yeah.
which was I like that guy actually. He's kind of funny, and his games are pretty interesting. From like they're all co-op and they're A Way Out and Tale of Two Sons or whatever. He revealed his new game. Looked like it had a cool art style, but we didn't really get to see any gameplay. And the other one that did kind of pique my interest was what was it called? It was the Dice game.
Yeah.
Not Dice the company, but there was a dice in the game.
Yeah,
It's random
like
something.
it's like something roll or something like that.
Little random or something. The random.
Mm,
But
it's
anyways,
something like that.
it had like a very Tim Burton-esque, like gothic, like awesome art style, like almost like claymation, and it looked just really cool. Like it was one of my highlights of the show. I was like, that looks like a cool game.
It's funny because I just kind of glossed over it and was like, look, EA did another Child of Light. That's just I
Wasn't
won't lie,
Child
I
of
was
Light a
very cynical
Ubisoft
about
game?
it. No, you're right. You're right. That's Ubisoft, but like I'll be honest, EA is one of those companies where like I don't really ever expect something from one of their new originals. That's why A Way Out was like surprisingly good. And
Yeah,
that's hey, I like that guy quite a lot. But this is one of those cases where like I don't know, I'm not like in.
yeah. I just like the art style, and it's cool to see a different type of art style that's not either like with video games. We've gotten to the point where it's cell shaded, or it looks like Fortnite, or it's super realistic and gritty. We don't really get a lot of much variation in that type of art styles, and this looks like a different art style, which I like to see, especially because like man, if I see another freaking cartoon hero shooter thing, I'm just ugh, I can't do it. I can't do it anymore.
All right, it's okay, Basil. It's okay. We'll get past that because we have another thing. The actual hypest announcement for me, Skate's coming back,
Oh
even
yeah,
though that
that was
announcement
big.
was terrible.
Yeah, honestly, I think
Like,
they they decided to announce it like 2 minutes before the show. They're like, "Hey guys, why don't we make another skate?" And then we'll just announce that we're making another skate. They're like, "Yeah, that's a good idea," even though we haven't done any work or anything on it.
literally, you've announced it before pre-production has began. You've announced it where literally someone walked in the room, put the paper down, and said, "We're doing this." There's nothing done. Why did you announce it?
Yeah, it was weird, but it got some people hyped. It was. I mean, it's cool that they're going back to it. Like, I mean, we're getting Tony Hawk again. What year is it? Is it 2002?
All right. Before it sounds like I'm angry, I'm actually not. I love Skate. I played Skate 2 quite a lot. I actually, all right, commenters and Basil, deep lore. I'm actually a big fan of skater culture. I think it's super cool.
That kind of makes sense from what I know about you. Also, if you love skate so much, why don't you marry it?
Wait, I want to go back to both of those comments. Wait a minute. Hold on. What do you mean? What do you mean that makes sense?
It's the way like you'd always show up to places doing like kickflips and stuff, and I'd be like, "Wow, you must like skateboards."
I just got the image of me doing a kickflip. Like, hey, what's up, nerds? I'm here, class. But yeah, I'm excited. It's a cool announcement. It's just, God, I feel like they should have put more thought into it. Maybe they should have waited. Maybe they should have like tempered everything, temper our expectations a little bit. Honestly, you should have gone to Microsoft or Sony and put it in with them instead. That would have been hype. Then everyone would have been like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
You know, instead of shove it in your really bad, not even 30-minute showcase where a lot of talking happened. Our one last piece of news, I guess, that we glossed over was that they're bringing Apex to Switch. The reason why I said this is notable, they're going to enable crossplay between all the consoles and PC, and I was like, what? And that's pretty exciting, actually.
Oh yeah, no, that was cool. I'm gonna actually try that on Switch just out of curiosity.
All right, you know what that means. Where are we dropping, boys? I like Apex, so I haven't
It's
played it
definitely
in
the
a while.
best battle royale game.
I definitely think it's my favorite as well. I've played like every other battle royale, and it's the only one that's really gripped me
Yeah,
enough to where I played it a lot.
yeah. I actually went up ranks in that game. It wasn't like others where I just tried it like 2 matches and then was like, oh okay. Like Fortnite, I tried it, played 2 matches, and then I was like, oh, okay. What was it? There was also like they had this reel where they showed like, at EA Play where they showed like next gen, I don't know, visuals and physics and stuff, and it was like this shows us
Yeah,
or tells us absolutely nothing. Like yeah, ooh, that looks pretty, but there's no proof at all that this is going to be what it looks like in the game.
it's like not even a tech demo. It's like you're just showcasing like
Like oh yeah, we're gonna
engine
have more
footage.
physics. Okay, like
It's one of those like, why do we the consumer care? You know, it's
oh man,
mm,
what a splooper.
yeah, pretty much like sums up my feelings on the whole show. I just didn't have like a good time watching it. I literally like half paid attention because I saw their announcements slowly, and I was just like talking to my dad at the same time. I was just like, who cares?
Yeah.
I even told him, I'm like, the only good announcements were Skate and Star Wars, and he's like, what's a Star Wars game? And I'm like, it's a fighter game. He's like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Even my dad wasn't interested.
Yeah, I mean it's cool as a campaign though.
Oh wow, what a concept.
What a concept. You just made me think of Tim and Eric. Oh wait, there was something I wanted to say. Now, so I think that kind of wraps up our feelings about EA Play. Moving forward, I just kind of wanted to like create a roadmap a little bit of the next few events, if you will. Summer of Gaming is having some events on Monday, and apparently they're going to be having more stuff throughout the next couple weeks. We also have Cyberpunk having their event, and then we have the big Microsoft event, which they haven't announced a date for, but it's safe to assume it'll be the first or second week of July. I imagine they want to get out as quickly as possible because right now public perception is like, oh, Sony's got everything. So, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die right now. Okay, and so they got to get ahead of that. But yeah, so we have a couple of things we'll be talking about the next couple of weeks. So Sky, what have you been playing?
I am still working on Xenoblade. I just got to the halfway point or so of the game, which is a very, very big spoiler. So I can't even talk about it because I don't want to ruin like literally anybody's potential chance of being spoiled because that game is so good.
Yep.
I've been playing a bunch of demos, but like the only one I'm gonna say I played I was like genuinely like I can't believe I want to play this so much is I played Grounded, the cool
Dude,
like,
I did too.
yeah, I really liked it.
Dude, I was shocked by how well it ran.
I was shocked by how well it ran. I was shocked by how I didn't. All right, I didn't realize how scared I was of all insects till I played it. I was like, dude, stop. The first time I encountered a spider, I literally like. I think I was playing it while talking to my girlfriend, and I screamed, and she's just like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Spider!"
I was shocked that there was just so little bugs, you know,
What do you mean?
like glitches.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. You said bugs, and I was like,
I
Basil,
know
what do
that
you
was the
mean?
joke. Um, but no, I actually, it's a 30-minute demo. You could play it on PC or Xbox. I enjoyed it. I was surprised. I usually don't go for those. Like Minecraft is pretty much the best version of those type of games. So usually it's hard to find one that kind of stands out. And it looks
I
like the
think
gimmick of like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids might really set this game apart. For those who don't know, it's being made by 12-man team Obsidian. It is not their next big game. Their next big game is going to be a AAA next gen RPG for the Series X. But just thought that's worth mentioning because I see a lot of people who are like, "Oh wow, Obsidian's not making games anymore. They're just making survival games. Like they're not making RPGs." It's like, no, this is just a small team.
it's funny they say that because as someone who is really sick of the survival genre, this one caught me because I never really realized how I like. I'm gonna talk about it quite a bit real quick because I actually replayed it. You actually can go back into the demo. You are allowed to play it multiple times, and
Oh
you
really?
just have a 30-minute time limit. Yeah, and so the first time I just kind of like did some. I played it and I played it, and that's about it. The second time, now that I knew how to play the game, I tried to do more, and I actually finished the story quests they give you. There's like a story going on to like work on a machine to make you normal size again, and I was like, I like having this kind of like overarching goal that is told to me. I really like that. I'm glad that I have like
Yeah, there's a story.
I know, yeah, I know that Subnautica and some other ones like that have that, but something about this one was like immediately notable because even my character was commenting on like what's happening, and I really like that.
I found it very intuitive too.
Yeah, I felt the only thing that was a little like was the building. The building's a little odd,
Yeah.
but I can get past it. The thing that surprised me though is how much is in that demo. Now, what I mean is, well, you only have 30 minutes. My last run, or my last kind of going into it, I decided I'm gonna just explore. I'm not even gonna I'm not gonna fight. I'm not gonna craft. I'm not gonna do any of that. I just want to see what's in this world. And the thing I found, this game does a really good job of telling you this is not a place I should be yet.
Yeah.
As I found out, so I went down an anthill and I found out the warrior ants in there kill me in 2 hits.
Oh man.
And I was like, oh my god, without armor. I was like, all right, that's terrifying. So I can't go down there, but that's something to note. Then I also went and I explored and I got to a tree. There's like a big tree in the yard. That is horrifying because there are like spiders everywhere. They have like little hovels and stuff, and you can find them like putting up webs and stuff. And I was like, and they're very loud. They sound like tigers because of like how they like sound made their sound. I was freaking out. It was great. And then the last thing I did was I'm like, I'm gonna go in this like just one direction towards the house. And I eventually got there and I found out you can go underneath the house.
Hmm.
Or I believe it's underneath the house or something kind of like going underneath the house. I think it might actually be like going into the underbrush. And let me tell you something. That is like that is like no man's land. You
Hmm.
go in there, you are not coming out unless you're prepared because the next thing I knew, every twist and turn, there is either a spider, this other type of bug that can shoot a projectile. There's just constant everything, and visibility is super low. I was like, this is terrifying. I did not really realize how being small could make my perception of normal day-to-day life so different, and I really loved that. There you go. I hope I've made some people interested because I really like it. I want to play it with a bunch of friends now.
Yeah, it's cool. It's gonna be co-op. I hope the co-op functions pretty well. I'm excited to see the full game. I mean, I know it'll be on Game Pass, so I'll definitely
Yeah.
give the full game a good old college try.
I was gonna say I think they actually do emphasize co-op though because I felt like combat was a little hard on my own.
Yeah.
Which I mean, then again, maybe that's just because it's a 30-minute demo and progression is a little harder since you're rushed. But I did get the vibe that they might want you to like work with your friends.
Is the demo co-op?
No, it is not.
No. Okay.
It's just I could not fight anything except basic ants. Like even as I like geared up because
Whoa. All
I don't
ants
know.
are special, dude. They're not basic.
Okay, I meant like the normal worker ants. Okay, now stop it. All right, but yeah, that's what I've been playing.
That's pretty dope. I also played that. I finished up not Crash Bandicoot, Ratchet and Clank, and I enjoyed it. I thought the boss fight, the last one, was a little lackluster. You're just flying around shooting this dude. I was like, okay.
Doesn't the last boss turn to what's his name? It's Doctor Nefarious, right? For the final like.
Yes, and he's like flying around this big thing.
Just so you know, that was not in the original. That
Oh
was a
yeah,
completely new fight added in. The fight before with Drek is actually the last boss of the
you
original.
don't fight Drek in the.
Oh, you don't? They removed that?
No,
Now
he
it's
gets
just
turned into a
Nefarious?
sheep.
That's weird. Yeah, you fought Drek, and it was a really good boss, and it felt very vindictive, and you're like, yes, I got you for everything he's done up to that point.
I did like the Captain Quark boss fight. That was fun. I liked the ending with Captain Quark where he's like doing how he's kind of like a good guy at the end. Like he feels bad about what he did, which I thought was cool. Nice character development.
Yeah.
Overall, I enjoyed the game. It was a fun time. I thought it was a little bit long, just a tad bit repetitive. Like there's a certain point where you don't really get much new weapons and stuff, and so it's kind of like okay, but
Usually, like the last two worlds tend to do that. Where like
yeah,
the last two worlds are purely like, all right, time to throw you in. Use everything you've got, just blast through, and there's no like new things added.
yeah,
It's just like a straight shot of combat usually, which is very normal for Ratchet and Clank games.
yeah. I've also been playing a post-apocalyptic game that has crafting and workbenches, and there's like story moments and stuff. Of course, everybody's familiar with it. Metro Exodus is DLC.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, I was trying to like bait you to think I was talking about The Last of Us. But yeah, so I've been playing. There's like Sam's Story. It's like a DLC to Metro Exodus. I enjoyed Metro Exodus, and this is kind of just more of what I enjoyed, like these kind of openish areas, and you kind of explore and you kill monsters, and the story's pretty decent. Like the acting's pretty top notch, and I don't know, I enjoy it. It's so far it's pretty fun. Only issue is saving. Like I played for like 30 minutes, then I died, and like usually the autosave system's pretty on point, but then I like went back 30 minutes and I was like, oh gosh. But there's a quick save functionality, but the so like that's something to remember to use, I guess. But I've been enjoying it. It's a really nice looking game, Metro Exodus. But yeah.
yeah, I can back that up. I need to play it still. I've
Yeah.
been meaning to.
It's on Game
Oh,
Pass.
oh, I totally forgot. Also, there was one other game I was playing, and this actually ties back to a story we talked about. I believe last week. I played Unfortunate Spaceman by the guy that the one company or the one group of guys that was in the PC gaming show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I tried it out. It's the game that they made free. It's really fun, and I 100% enjoy it for a free title. It's a lot of fun. I got to play it with a group of six friends. We got together and we played some Unfortunate Spaceman, and oh man, it's really fun and entertaining when like you're running around and your friend turns into an alien and kills you when you're not expecting it, and you're like, well, that was spooky.
Yeah, nothing like a little bit of spookiness.
Oh, I love spooky games.
Yeah. Lots of gaming news. I guess we should also mention that The Last of Us 2 did come out this week.
Whatever.
I've been watching streams of it because I just kind of want to see the story. I plan on playing it eventually, but I'm not going to pay full price for it because like, and this isn't, honestly, this isn't even like I have a hate boner for The Last of Us 2 or anything, because this is how I was with the first Last of Us. It's the type of game for me that's not worth full price, including the first one. And I bought the first one at like $20 and I enjoyed it. And I thought it was definitely worth it at that price, but to me, there's just not full price games. I don't enjoy them that much. Like the gameplay of Naughty Dog games has never really grabbed me. Like even though I enjoy the stories of their games, their gameplay's just never really grabbed me. So, and Last of Us 2 seems
Yeah.
to be like, story wise, it's a little weaker apparently, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll just kind of watch and see what the big deal is. And honestly, from stuff I've watched, it's not as bad as I think a lot of people are saying. But there's definitely some dumb parts in it. There's just like a couple of plot holes and gaps and leaps in logic, and I'm like, why did that happen? But there is some actually like genuinely good character writing in it, which I think needs to be commended because that's something Naughty Dog does so well is like the little moments of character interplay. That being said, I mean, and this coming from like a backseat gaming, like I'm just watching streams. But that being said, like I don't think any of the newer characters really like are that interesting compared to the characters in the first game. So there's that. But also I find the story to be extreme. Like Red Dead Redemption 2 did this story. Like Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2 did this story and did it better. Like
Yeah.
it's the revenge cycle of violence story we've all seen, and I just don't feel that it doesn't do much to set itself apart. You know, it's like, oh, revenge is bad. That is what that you can the entire story can be put down to revenge is bad.
It's funny you say that because Red Dead 1 is like it has a very somber kind of like way of looking at it, and a very like, hey, the world just doesn't give two craps about whatever you're thinking about or whatever you're worried about. At the end of the day, things will go the way they go.
Red Dead 1 also and 2 are about consequences to your actions. You kill these people or whatever, you were a criminal, you did this stuff, and you can't escape that. That's why they have such dark, like sad endings. Red Dead 2 specifically, the only reason Arthur Morgan, spoilers by the way, the only reason he dies is because he beat up a dude who had tuberculosis to get because the dude wasn't paying him their money. And like that dude, like this concept that I see a lot of people saying with Last of Us 2, that it's like it's, oh, you're the bad guy, you know. This has never been explored before in video games. It's like Spec Ops The Line did this, Red Dead did this, like this isn't original. You know, Last of Us 1 did this. Not to say
Well, these are also people who probably didn't like explore more than like the. So this is like something that I'm actually going to hold against like The Last of Us and like the people around it. Not Naughty Dog. I mean, like the people who are really 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 big fans of The Last of Us. The thing is I think that there's a level of like Last of Us is very straightforward and handholdy in a sense that like it is a linear game with a linear plot with nothing else going on.
Yeah.
If you get like what I mean, like
No,
there's no
I know
like
what you mean.
branching off. And as a result, you have a linear experience that is told to you. Something like Red Dead 1 and 2, you are not handheld. You have to go off and kind of seek your own desire for that story.
And Red Dead 2
You
has
have
multiple
to-
endings.
Yeah. Oh, wait, really?
Yeah.
Never finished it, so
Son of a bitch.
it's fine. I'm not really that spoiled. I believe I already knew that thing that you talked about, so it's not a big deal to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been
Um,
2 years.
Yeah, but like that's the thing is I feel like the linear experience is the main reason people got into it, and because they felt that like human aspect to it.
Well, yeah, the acting is amazing, and the
Yeah.
character writing is just fantastic. Like it
Yeah.
feels very real in like it's very emotional and raw in that sense. The Last of Us is what I'm talking about, by the way.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm the only reason that I feel like that's the thing. I don't think it's getting praise for concepts that have already existed because people actually genuinely think that. I think it's more a matter of the individuals who are supporting and praising that are people who did not give the adequate time to something like a Red Dead, like a Spec Ops, which is such a shame, by the way. Spec Ops is such a great game talking about war. God,
Yeah.
that game's story is really, really good, actually. And it's such a shame that no one played it.
And Spec Ops flips the tropes of video game narratives where it's like when you're the hero, you like that classic military video game, you know, where it's like, oh, you're the like Call of Duty. Spec Ops is the anti Call of Duty.
Yeah, it doesn't just like treat you like everything is fine and absolvable. It's like no, there's real consequences to everything that happens, and I really respect that. And I genuinely think the people playing Last of Us are the people who are not people who have experienced a lot of the stories that have existed. I mean,
Oh, you make a really good point actually, because
yeah,
I see. So you're saying like because Last of Us is so it's very accessible, you know.
yeah,
It's very popular. It's going to sell millions of copies. The first one sold millions. A lot of people experiencing this don't play a lot of games. And so maybe
yeah.
they play a Call of Duty here or there, or they play a Spider-Man or something, and they're like, "Oh, this is a fun game." But this game, this is the Game of Thrones game. You know, this is the one
Yeah.
where nobody's safe, and it's like there's nothing like this to them because they
It's
haven't
the
played a bunch
epitome
of games.
of a popcorn serious. It's a popcorn serious discussion game.
It's weird, right? that exists.
I mean, hey, guess what? I'm gonna throw this at you. Guess what? I know another game that makes you the bad guy. And no one knows it because, in fact, it's been buried underneath its cousin.
What?
I wonder what game I'm talking about. It's a game I love with all my heart.
Is it Mario and Luigi?
Yes, no, it's the first Nier.
Oh.
The first Nier actually has a lot of stuff that I'm not going to talk about because now that there's a remake coming,
Well, I
people
would
will
even
actually get to
argue
experience it.
in Nier Automata, you're kind of not really the good guy for a while. Like the side you're on's not
Um,
great.
yeah, the problem with that though is Automata doesn't have sides traditionally when you think about it. If you get what I mean by that, like you as an individual don't know the full story, and once it all comes together, you actually realize that nothing matters. And that's something about Automata's story that I think is really important to note is that I don't feel like there's actually a point to anything the actions the characters are taking, and that's the point. Like that's the
The
important like
point is that
storytelling
there's no
aspect there.
point. Is that Rick and Morty?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much sure. But the first Nier has something along those lines where once all the pieces come together, you realize you're messing up. Like there's something bigger happening
And
that
you're like,
you're
I'm a
not
floopity
noticing.
blooper.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is The Last of Us is a very digestible, very mainstream,
Yeah.
very normal pick for people.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
I can tell you from all the time I when I worked at GameStop, a lot of the people I heard that were excited for The Last of Us 2 said, "Oh yeah, I don't really play games often. I tend to play more like Call of Duty." And they're like, I recommended Witcher by the way to someone who was like a big fan of like sort of RPGs and stuff. I was like, "Have you tried Witcher?" And he's like, "What's it about?" And I'm like, "It's about." I gave like a general synopsis. I'm like, but it's like one of the best like RPGs I've ever played because it's so well diversified in how it tells its story
Yeah.
and how well it's told. And he's like, "Oh, whoa." I was like, "Yeah, yeah." That's the thing. You got to remember there is a general consumer kind of thought out there,
Yeah.
and a lot of them. That's why The Last of Us is so big
Yeah.
because it appeals to emotions, because it appeals to a mainstream audience, because it's a recognizable name.
Yeah. And Naughty Dog they make the popcorn movie games, they make Uncharted. They make the games that are accessible, they hold your hand. And I don't even mean that in a negative way. Like I think there's room for all types of games. And I think Naughty Dog's games they're good at what they do. They make beautiful games that are meant to be your Marvel movie of games, if you will. This is the one that everyone goes and plays and everyone talks about, and it doesn't mean it's necessarily bad, but it also doesn't mean it's necessarily, breaking the genre. I think there's a lot of overblown puffery about those types of games where it's like people are like this is, the Schindler's List of video games, and then I'm like, okay,
Uh,
just I don't know.
I think it's weird because I'm someone who I love digesting and enjoying Marvel movies, but when it comes to something like The Last of Us, I find it contrived and like I really don't feel like it gets too much credit. I personally believe, at least compared to a lot of things. And like this is also me coming from the fact that I have someone in my static who is currently playing it, and he's like, I just got to that thing and it happened, and I'm like, whoa. And I'm just like, I even said to him, I'm like, that's cool, great, I'm glad that you enjoy the game. And he's like, well, what's your problem? And I'm like, well, the fact is I didn't really enjoy the first one, and I'm not going to probably enjoy the second one.
Yeah, which is like totally fair. I think the big issue now is like there's this kind of weird because there's the people who did enjoy the first one that are like, oh, the second one like shits all over the first one or whatever. Honestly, watching the streams, the second one to me makes a lot of sense as a sequel to the first game. Like, where else do you go with the story other than maybe the way they executed it? I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of, but the story itself, like it to me, is the natural progression of the first game, and it's all about consequences of the first game and it's all about your consequences. Whereas, like, as somebody who was like, oh, I enjoyed the first game, wasn't mind blowing or anything, but I enjoyed it. I'll play this one when it's $20. That's kind of all there is to it. Like, I don't know, because Naughty Dog's always like the big Sony, this is their premier games, and I've just never felt that way about them. Like, I always met Sony's other studios do better, like Spider-Man, God of War, even Horizon. Like, I enjoyed these games more than I enjoyed Naughty Dog games, even though, like, yeah, I think like Uncharted's a fun game with like I like it, but it's just not like there's not a whole lot there.
I think the place to leave it off on that is just to remember that something like a Halo, a Last of Us, a Call of Duty, something that has like a really huge connection to the social zeitgeist that is the gaming community, like, and I mean this in general sense, even for people that don't play a ton of games, the impact that they've had will ultimately lead to people utilizing them as a strong sort of focal point for what they believe to be this like outstanding representation of like the best that games can do in their particular genre.
Yeah.
And that's just an unfortunate situation where unfortunately the bigger voices are the ones that have played less, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, on the plus side, it does get more people into gaming, and it does make people take it. Like, even though I think the argument that, oh, The Last of Us makes gaming serious, like, I think that's dumb, but it's
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 been
true
plenty serious
to
before
an
then.
extent. Like, the popular zeitgeist, they look at The Last of Us and they're like, oh, see, video games they're not just for kids. It's like, if that's what it takes to get somebody to try some games, I'm okay with that. I mean, even though we've seen way darker games, like The Last of Us isn't
Oh yeah.
isn't the darkest game ever made. I think a lot of it has to do with execution and accessibility, but yeah, I mean, good for them. I do hope it like I don't want it to fail. Like I hate people who are like, oh, this game needs to fail. I'm just like, no, like these people worked their butts off for 5 years on this game. Let it or 6 years on this game. Let it, I think it deserves its time to shine. Based on all the hard work put into it, even if I don't necessarily agree with the story, like that's just my prerogative.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like I would never root for like a piece of work to fail, whether it's a video game or a movie or a building or whatever. Even if it's like necessarily like something like unless it's horribly garbage, like if it
I I think it's more like when the studio itself or the concept is morally like bankrupt. Something
exactly.
like if you remember Hatred from like a couple years back, that was about a dude who literally the entire goal is he just wanted to go and slaughter people because he felt it was right. And I was like, that's literally just fucking homicide for no reason. And
Yeah.
it was just like a game aggressively about just killing people to kill them. And I was like, that's not right. There's something wrong there.
It's when there's like things are passionless. Like
Mm.
my biggest issue with I get like I don't know, flack. I'll say that Justice League is the worst DC movie in my opinion. Justice League is the worst one. It's worse than Batman versus Superman. It's the worst one. And the reason I say this is because it is the one that is completely bereft of any passion. It's so cynical and it's made by committee, and I hate that. Whereas at least Batman v Superman, for better or worse, you can tell it's Zack Snyder's vision, and I think it's for worse. But at least the dude had there's some kind of passion there, and whether or not that connects with me, it connects with a lot of people apparently. I think games that are made by committee, Call of Duty, I oftentimes just don't feel anything for those games.
Hmm.
In games that are made by a passionate creator, a passionate singular vision, even if they're not for me. Like for instance, Death Stranding, even though I haven't played it and I'm going to at some point when it's cheap, it's a singular vision and from a man with passion. And you can tell, even if the game's not for you, and even if it's kind of like, oh, this is a weird game, but it's like it's a passionate game. And that's something I'll always take over the freaking EA's Rocket blah game that looks like every other game. And you're just like, where's the originality? Where's the heart behind this thing?
Absolutely. I think that's a
Where's the
really, really
Josef
well put.
Fares?
Huh?
Jose Ferris, whatever that guy's name is.
All right. Well, with that, guys.
I think that about wraps up this episode of the weekly game drive with Basil and Sky. Tune in next week to learn if Cyberpunk really is the worst game ever made.
Yup. Confirmed.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Yup. Have a good one, everybody.